You're listening to Overhead Story Channel. Enjoy.
I didn't mean to snoop. I swear I didn't. It was just after midnight on a Thursday. I'd finished scrubbing the grease off my hands an hour earlier, ate a late dinner Rachel had left out for me, pasta, cold by then, but appreciated, and collapsed on the couch, dead tired. She was already upstairs, out cold. I could hear the soft rise and fall of her breath through the baby monitor we still used from when we had dogs, weirdly enough. Our house was too quiet without some kind of background noise. I was plugging in my phone on the dresser when hers buzzed on the nightstand. Just a buzz, no chime. She always kept it on vibrate at night, said the alerts gave her anxiety. Normally, I wouldn't touch it. That was our unspoken rule. But this time, for reasons I didn't fully understand even in the moment, I picked it up. Thought I'd toss it on the charger for her. As soon as I tapped the screen to wake it up, a photo popped open. It was one of those live photos, the kind that moves for a second when you press it. And I did. I pressed it. It was Rachel. She was at a bar. I recognized the place, some trendy whiskey lounge downtown with vintage lighting and those dumb Edison bulbs that give everyone raccoon eyes. She was dressed in that tight black off-the-shoulder dress she told me was for a product shoot for her boutique, just styling some fall looks for the site, she'd said the night before, twirling in front of the mirror. At the time, I told her she looked beautiful. And she had. But the way she looked in the photo? It was different. She was smiling in that picture. Laughing even. Not at the camera but at someone just off frame. Her arms were wrapped around a guy, a stranger to me. She was sitting right on his lap, turned toward him, one arm draped across his shoulders like it belonged there. His hand was around her waist. Like it had been there all night. Like it knew the shape of her. The timestamp said 9:48 p.m. The night before. I stared at the screen until it dimmed out. At first, I just stood there, phone in hand, listening to the silence of our bedroom. I heard her shift a little under the comforter, then settle. She always curled up like a cat when she slept. I used to think it was cute, still did maybe. But that moment, it just made my stomach twist. I didn't confront her that night. Didn't say a word. Just put the phone gently on the nightstand and climbed into bed beside her. But I didn't sleep. I lay there for hours, eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above us. I kept replaying that photo in my mind, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was part of the shoot. Maybe the guy was a model or someone helping with lighting. Maybe I was blowing it all out of proportion. But if it was nothing, why hadn't she mentioned it? And why didn't she tag the boutique like she usually did? The next morning, I waited until we were both halfway through our coffee. She was standing at the sink, scrolling through her phone like she always did before, checking inventory or responding to customer messages. I asked her casually, like I just stumbled across it while looking through my own photos. "Hey, Ratch," I said, careful not to sound sharp, "who's the guy in that photo from last night?" She turned, phone still in hand. "What photo? The one of you at that bar, sitting on someone's lap?" Her eyebrows twitched. Just for a second. Then she laughed, brushing her hair behind her ear the way she always did when she was trying to stay composed. "Oh, that's just Mason. Or no, Michael. Something with an M," she said, setting her mug down and waving her hand like it was nothing. "Old friend from when I worked retail back in Boulder. We ran into each other after the shoot and grabbed a drink. It was so random." I watched her carefully. "You didn't mention that." She shrugged. "Didn't think it was worth mentioning. It was literally like 2 drinks. He was already there with friends. Totally harmless." "Looked like you were pretty cozy," I said, before I could stop myself. Her expression hardened, just a little. "Are you seriously jealous right now?" she asked. "God, Thomas, it was nothing. Just a silly photo. Someone else snapped it and sent it to me. I barely remember it. You know how people are at bars." I didn't respond. Just nodded, sipped my coffee, and pretended to let it go. But I didn't let it go. Because something had shifted in me, in her, in that unspoken space between us that used to feel so easy. For the rest of that morning, I went through the motions. Drove to the shop, changed the oil on a '98 Civic, dealt with a walk-in who wanted an estimate for a busted axle and didn't want to wait. Normal stuff. But my mind wasn't there. It kept drifting back to that photo, to Rachel's easy dismissal, to the way she hadn't looked me in the eye once while explaining it. And that laugh, the one in the photo, I hadn't heard her laugh like that in months. Maybe years. With me, it was always tired chuckles or sarcastic grins. Never that carefree, full-body joy I saw in that 1-second clip. That night when I came home, Rachel was in her office doing something on her laptop. She barely looked up. Just mumbled something about being slammed with orders and needing to shoot new pieces tomorrow. I said I'd order dinner. She nodded. We didn't eat together. Again. I know how this all sounds. Like I'm some insecure husband letting one blurry photo mess with my head. And maybe that's part of it. But I'm not stupid. You start to notice things, the distance, the shift in tone, the weight behind words that used to come easy. That photo didn't show me something new. It confirmed what I'd already started to feel but didn't want to admit. I spent the rest of that week doing what I always did, working long hours at the garage, trying not to spiral. But every night, when I walked in the door, Rachel was either on a video call with someone I didn't know or she was rushing to finish something and asked if we could catch up later. Later never came. I started thinking about other things, little moments I'd brushed off over the last few months. The out-of-town content retreats she suddenly needed to attend. The new lingerie I saw her pack once, which she swore was for a brand collab. The times she came home with the scent of cologne on her, faint but noticeable when she'd claimed she was working alone. I told myself I was imagining things. That relationships ebb and flow and maybe she was just stressed. But that photo? That was the moment the ground shifted. I didn't say anything more. Not about the picture. Not about the other things. But I started paying attention. Really paying attention. To how she moved. To how she looked at me. To how I suddenly felt like a guest in my own home. I didn't want to accuse her. Didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband with a chip on his shoulder. But I couldn't unsee what I saw. Couldn't unfeel what I felt. Something was broken. And for the first time I was starting to accept that maybe Rachel had already left me emotionally if not physically. That maybe I'd been holding on to the shell of something that was already empty inside. And that scared me more than any photo ever could. After that night, things didn't fall apart all at once. It wasn't some explosive argument or a dramatic confession that tore the fabric. It was slower, quieter. Like a house rotting from the inside, paint still intact, structure still standing, but the beams hollowed out long ago. That photo had been the crack, but the more I stared through it, the more I saw. Things I should have seen before. Like how Rachel had stopped asking me about my day. Not just forgetting once or twice, she never asked. I'd come home from 10 hours in the shop, grease still on my skin, shoulders aching, and she'd barely look up from her laptop. Sometimes she'd offer a tired, "Hey, babe," but that was it. No follow-up. No warmth. Just a tone that sounded more like obligation than affection. I started noticing how she flinched when I touched her, not violently, just subtle things. When I brushed her shoulder walking past. When I kissed her cheek goodnight. She used to lean in. Now she leaned away. She started traveling more, said it was for brand collaborations and influencer meetups. Networking, she called it. First it was Denver. Then Santa Fe. Then a trip to L.A. that she claimed was essential for her brand. I wanted to support her truly. I'd always admired how she'd turned her hobby into a legitimate business. But these trips? They came with vague itineraries, no pictures of the events, and late-night returns where she looked more dazed than energized. One night, I picked her up from the airport. She came out of the terminal wearing a scarf I didn't recognize, deep Berg asterisk and Y with silver accents, not her usual style. And she smelled like cologne. Something woodsy and expensive. Not mine. I asked if she had a good trip. She nodded. Tiring, she said, but didn't elaborate. That night, she fell asleep instantly, facing away from me, her back a firm wall under the sheets. After that, I started recalling every moment I'd once dismissed. Like how she always turned her phone screen down. How she used to post goofy selfies of the two of us on her boutique's Instagram, little behind-the-scenes snaps with captions like, "My grease monkey," or "package assistant / husband love letter." Then all of a sudden I was gone. Not one picture of us for months. Her content shifted, polished, curated, brand-forward. You'd think she was single just by looking at her feed. I asked her once, gently, why she didn't post us anymore. She smiled without looking up and said, "The algorithm favors aspirational content." I didn't ask again. Then came the mood swings. Sometimes she was icy cold, distant, irritable, closed off. Other times she was unusually sweet, bringing home coffee, asking if I wanted to watch something together, but only half listening while scrolling through her phone. I could never predict which version of her I was coming home to. It was like flipping a coin every night. And yet I kept trying. I planned a weekend getaway to a cabin in Manitou, something simple, quiet. Just the two of us. She said she couldn't get away from work. It's not a good time. But that weekend she posted a photo of herself at a vineyard with a group of women I didn't recognize. The caption read, #content retreat, #grateful. I didn't comment. I didn't text. I just stared at it for a long time, then set my phone down and went for a walk. At some point, I realized we weren't sleeping together anymore. And I don't mean the physical act, I mean we were literally not sleeping together. Most nights, she claimed she had late work and would crash on the guest bed. Said the bedroom lighting was bad for filming. Or that she didn't want to wake me up while editing. But even when I stayed up late to keep her company, she seemed uncomfortable having me nearby. I'd knock, step inside, and she'd minimize her screen like a teenager hiding something. Sometimes she'd smile. Other times she'd sigh exasperated, like I was interrupting something important. I told myself maybe she was overwhelmed. Burnout's real. The pressure to stay relevant online, I get it. But deep down I knew. This wasn't stress. It was rejection. Soft, quiet, and consistent. And it was carving me down to nothing. One night, I found myself staring at the closet. Her side looked different. New clothes, unfamiliar brands. Lace, deep plunges, sleek fabrics, none of it looked like anything she wore around me. She used to live in comfy sweaters and ripped jeans. Now she was stocking outfits fit for rooftop lounges and photo shoots, not grocery runs or movie nights. I hadn't seen her wear a single one of those pieces for me. Even her eyes looked different lately. When we first got together, Rachel's eyes always lit up when I walked into a room, that kind of warmth that made you feel chosen. Now they just looked tired. Or worse, indifferent. Like I was background noise she'd learned to tune out. And maybe the hardest part? I couldn't tell anyone. How do you explain to your buddies at the garage that your wife doesn't look at you the same? That the woman you married now sleeps in a different room and treats you like an inconvenience? What do you say that you found a photo and she brushed it off and now your heart doesn't know what to believe? So I swallowed it. I went to work, fixed transmissions, changed oil, listened to people complain about squeaky brakes. I came home, made small talk, cooked dinner when she forgot, and slept with my back to the cold side of the bed. I stopped asking questions. Stopped offering affection. Stopped expecting anything. I just drifted alongside her, pretending not to notice the distance that had grown between us like a canyon. Until one night, a small thing, really finally broke me. We were in the kitchen. She was heating up leftovers. I was fixing a drawer that always stuck. I asked her, without thinking, do you want to go to that Thai place next weekend? She didn't look up. Just said, why? What's next weekend? I said, our anniversary. She blinked. Wait, seriously? I nodded. Yeah. 9 years. Oh, she said. Wow. Totally slipped my mind. That was it? No apology. No recovery. Just that. She carried her bowl to the living room, flipped on a show, and that was the end of it. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at the open drawer, my hands still gripping the screwdriver. And I thought, this is what it feels like when someone forgets they loved you. Not hated. Not cheated. Not screamed at. Just forgot. And somehow that was worse. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because it was supposed to rain, but the clouds held back. That kind of moody sky that makes the air feel heavy, like the world knows something you don't. I'd finished work early, our last appointment canceled, and Rick told me to head out and go live a little. I didn't have the heart to tell him I didn't know what that meant anymore. When I got home, something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it right away, but the front door was unlocked. Rachel always triple-checked the lock, especially since the neighbor's car had been broken into last fall. Inside, it smelled like candles, not the usual vanilla or cinnamon she kept around, but something muskier, like red wine and perfume. The house was quiet, too quiet even for us. I walked through the entry, keys still in my hand, boots still on. The living room was dimly lit, late afternoon light pouring through the sheer curtains. My eyes went straight to the kitchen. 2 wine glasses sat in the sink. One was stained with lipstick, deep maroon, not the kind Rachel usually wore. I frowned. She didn't mention company. Then I noticed something else. A pair of sneakers near the couch. They weren't mine. They were men's, big, size 11 or 12, laced but slightly worn. Not brand new. Not decorative. Someone had taken them off like they lived there. My heart slowed. Or maybe it sped up. I couldn't tell. It just got louder in my ears. I moved quietly, not out of fear, more like instinct. Like my body already knew something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. There was laughter upstairs. Soft. Playful. Hers. Rachel's laugh used to be one of my favorite sounds in the world. Now it stopped me cold in the hallway. I stepped toward the stairs, heart hammering, legs wooden. Every step felt like it echoed even though I was barefoot now, boots left by the door without thinking. I don't know what I expected, maybe her on a video call, maybe a sister over, maybe some completely innocent explanation. But I didn't believe that. Not really. Not anymore. I got to the bedroom door. It was cracked open. Just a sliver. I could see enough. She was there. On the bed. Undressed. Wrapped in the kind of sheets we hadn't used in months. Her legs tangled with his. His back was to me, but I didn't need to see his face. He was laughing too, easy, confident, relaxed in a way I hadn't felt in years. She was smiling. Not just smiling, glowing. Her face lit up like it used to when she'd get off a good phone call with a new client or when she first launched her site. Her eyes had that spark I hadn't seen in forever. She touched his chest, said something I couldn't quite hear, then laughed again. Her voice soft, familiar, warm. And in that moment, something in me shut off. I didn't make a sound. Didn't say a word. I just stood there, frozen, watching the final confirmation of everything I'd been suspecting, everything I'd been trying to deny. I wanted to scream. Wanted to rip the door open and ask who the hell he was. Wanted to throw something, punch something, yell until my throat burned. But I didn't. Instead, I turned. Walked back down the stairs. Quiet. Steady. Calm in the way a person gets when they're completely done. I didn't take much. Just grabbed my wallet, phone, the duffel I kept in the hall closet for gym stuff. I tossed in 2 days' worth of clothes, my charger, and the envelope with my birth certificate and social tucked in the drawer. Before I left, I glanced once more toward the stairs. Still laughing. Still completely unaware. I drove around for about an hour. No destination. Just aimless loops through neighborhoods I didn't know, headlights bouncing off mailboxes and cracked sidewalks. At one point, I parked near a gas station and just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. I felt nothing. Not rage. Not sorrow. Just this deep, bone-level exhaustion. Like the weight of carrying this doubt for so long had finally caved in on itself. Eventually, I pulled into a 24-hour diner near the edge of town. Sat in a booth, ordered a black coffee I didn't touch, and stared out the window for what felt like days. When I finally drove back home, the sun was just beginning to dip, bleeding orange through the trees. I parked down the block. Walked the rest of the way. The house was quiet again. I let myself in, grabbed the last few essentials, my work boots, my passport, the small box where I kept my dad's old watch. Then I opened the laptop we shared for taxes and finances, logged into our joint account, and transferred everything. Every dollar. Every cent. We'd started the account when we got married. Called it the Sloan Fund. It was supposed to be for a house one day. Or kids. Or travel. I stared at the screen, the numbers final and sharp. Then I logged out. I left my keys on the counter. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. Rachel didn't call that night. Maybe she hadn't noticed yet. Or maybe she was waiting for me to make the first move, like always. But I wasn't going to. That night, I checked into a cheap motel off I-25. The kind with mustard-colored walls and vending machines that ate your quarters. I lay on the thin mattress, still fully dressed, staring at the ceiling with the TV off. My phone buzzed once, an Instagram tag. Rachel had posted something. I clicked out of habit. A photo of a coffee mug, some scenic mountain view, captioned, "Grateful for the quiet moments." I stared at it for a long time. Not a single mention of me. Not even a trace. The first call came the next morning, just after sunrise. I was still at the motel, lying flat on a mattress that felt like it had been stuffed with cardboard. I hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out of that weird state where your mind replays everything on loop. The sound of her laugh. The look on her face. That hand on her waist. That damned photo that started all of it. My phone buzzed. Rachel. I didn't answer. A few seconds later, a text. "Where are you?" Followed by another. "Tom? Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over it. Part of me wanted to respond. Part of me wanted to say, "Talk to the guy you were in bed with." But I didn't write that. I didn't write anything. I just turned the phone face down and let it buzz. She called again around 10. Then again at noon. Then at 2. Each call followed the same rhythm. Ring, pause, voicemail. I didn't check them. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what she'd say. I'd heard this pattern before, not from Rachel, but from people in general. The first stage was confusion. Then came panic. Then came anger. And like clockwork, by the time the 5th voicemail came in around 4 p.m., the tone shifted. "Thomas, this is ridiculous. You can't just disappear. I don't even know what you think you saw, but whatever it is, it's not what you think." I muted the phone. I wasn't going to play chess with her over semantics. I saw everything I needed to see, not just in that bedroom, but in the months leading up to it. The affair was just the punchline to a joke I'd been living for over a year. By the second day, she switched tactics. Her texts turned longer. Paragraphs. Emotional. Sentences like, "I miss you so much and you're my best friend, please don't do this." One even said, "I didn't mean for it to happen, but we can come back from this." People do all the time. Come back from this? That line made me laugh. Out loud, bitter and sharp, like a bark. That's when the voicemails started sounding teary. She said my name like it hurt to say. Paused between words. Sniffled. It might have worked on the version of me from a year ago. But now? Now it just sounded like fear. Not fear of losing me, but fear of losing control. I wasn't supposed to leave. Rachel always thought I'd stick it out. That I'd be the stable one, the steady foundation she could stand on while she floated through moods, whims, and whatever new phase her brand demanded. I was dependable. Predictable. Background. So when I left, really left, it shook her. And not because she lost me, but because she lost the leverage that came with knowing I'd stay. By day 3, she started looping in friends. First it was Jenna, her old roommate from college. She texted me something vague. Hey, I know things are weird, but Rachel really wants to talk. You guys love each other. Don't let this spiral. Then her mom called. I didn't even know she had my number. She left a voicemail, her voice firm and vaguely condescending. Thomas, I don't know what Rachel did, but she's a good woman. Every relationship has bumps. Don't let pride ruin a marriage. Pride. That word made my blood run cold. Was that what they thought this was? That I was just bruised, throwing a tantrum? Rachel must have painted herself as the misunderstood wife. Confused, emotionally neglected, maybe even tempted. That's always the narrative, isn't it? Woman makes a mistake, man must have pushed her there. Otherwise, she wouldn't have strayed. It was easier to believe I was cold than to admit she'd been cruel. But the kicker came on day 4. Her ex called. I hadn't spoken to Nate since the wedding. They'd dated for 2 years before we met. And though she swore they were totally done, I always suspected he lingered around in some digital corner of her life. He left a voice message too. Hey man, I know this is awkward. Rachel's really shaken up. I don't know the details, but she's hurting. Maybe just talk to her? You guys were solid. Don't throw it away without talking. I stared at the phone, jaw clenched so tight I gave myself a headache. Of all people, him? That told me everything I needed to know. She didn't just want to apologize. She wanted the narrative back on her side. Sympathy, leverage, manipulation dressed up as regret. It wasn't guilt. It was desperation. She had always been good at that. Taking chaos and turning it into a story where she came out looking like the wounded party. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. I texted her one thing finally on the 5th day. I saw everything. There's nothing to talk about. She responded within seconds. It wasn't what it looked like. Please, Tom. I love you. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled up our bank history. She hadn't noticed yet that the accounts were empty. I watched the log for a few minutes, half expecting a frantic withdrawal attempt or a new login. Nothing. The next morning, she texted again. This one was shorter. Where's the money? I let it sit. No answer. An hour later, another message. What are you doing? You emptied everything. That's not fair. Not fair. As if fairness had anything to do with this. That night, I got a message from her sister, Emily. It was the most honest one yet. I don't know what she did, but I don't blame you. Do what you need to do. And that was the first time I felt something close to peace. Not because someone was on my side, but because for once, someone didn't try to gaslight me into thinking this was salvageable. I started packing for real the next morning. I hadn't figured out where I'd land yet. I just knew I wasn't going back to that house. That wasn't my home anymore. It was just a place where I'd been slowly erased, 1 inch at a time. I went through our old photos before I deleted them. Not out of nostalgia, more like inventory. A way of closing the tab in my head. It was weird seeing our early years together. We looked happy. Real happy. Young, not just in age, but in the way we leaned into each other without hesitation. I kept one picture. Just one. It was a photo of us camping in Telluride, before all the boutique stuff, before the filters, before the curated smiles. She was wearing one of my flannels, her hair in a messy braid, holding a cup of instant coffee with both hands. No makeup, just eyes that still saw me. I didn't keep it because I missed her. I kept it to remind myself I wasn't crazy. There was love once. It just wasn't enough. The drive to Austin took 11 hours. I didn't stop much. Just a gas station in New Mexico where I grabbed a sandwich I didn't eat and a bottle of water that sat unopened in the cup holder. The rest of the way was a blur of highway and podcasts I wasn't listening to. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. Not even Mason, a guy I hadn't talked to in 3 years, but who'd once said, "If you're ever in Texas, I got you." We worked together at a shop up north before he moved out here to open his own place. We kept in touch, sort of Instagram likes, the occasional "you still alive?" text. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I pulled into town around 8 p.m., found a cheap motel on the edge of the city, and texted Mason, "Hey, you still got room for another set of hands in the garage?" He responded almost immediately, "You in Austin? Just got in. Come by tomorrow. 8 a.m. sharp. Don't make me regret this." I smiled for the first time in what felt like weeks. The next morning, I showed up at his garage, a converted warehouse with a rusted sign that just said Mace in faded red paint. He walked out wiping his hands on a towel, grinning like I'd just crawled out of the past. "Damn," he said. "You look like hell. Feel worse." He clapped me on the back, then nodded toward the garage. "Let's get to work." And just like that, I started over. The first few weeks were quiet. Routine. I rented a studio apartment on the second floor of a weird, leaning duplex just outside the city. It had peeling paint, loud pipes, and a neighbor who played saxophone at midnight, but it was mine. No shared closet. No second toothbrush I didn't recognize. No perfume clinging to pillowcases I didn't sleep on. It was peace wrapped in chipped drywall. I didn't unpack everything right away. Most of it stayed in the duffel or the trunk of my car. The only thing I placed on the windowsill was the photo I kept of Rachel in my flannel holding the cup of coffee. It didn't hurt to look at anymore. It just reminded me of who I used to be. At the shop, Mason didn't ask questions. He handed me keys to the back storage, gave me a schedule, and let me fall into the rhythm. Oil changes, engine rebuilds, tire rotations. The kind of work that quieted your head because it gave your hands something to do. That was what I needed most, silence that didn't feel like punishment. Rachel texted every few days at first. "Just tell me you're okay. You left without a word. Do you even care how I'm feeling?" I didn't respond. Not once. Eventually the texts got longer. Then they stopped altogether. I think that silence was the moment she realized I wasn't coming back. I didn't block her. Didn't delete her number. Just stopped reaching. There was no anger left. Only clarity. One day I was fixing a customer's alternator when Mason came up behind me. "Hey," he said, nodding toward the front office. "Jenna wants to talk to you." "Jenna?" He smirked. "Owner. Technically, I just run the place." That was news. I walked up front and found her behind a desk cluttered with paperwork and coffee mugs. She was in her early 40s, maybe, short hair, sharp eyes, flannel shirt rolled up to the elbows. "You must be Sloan," she said, standing up and extending a hand. "Mason says you're not completely useless." "I've been called worse." She laughed and it wasn't forced. "Cool. Well, payroll's Thursdays. Don't clock out early unless you hate money. Coffee's fresh every morning. Don't take the last cup unless you plan on brewing the next one. Got it? Crystal." She paused like she was sizing me up. "You married?" The question landed like a pebble in a pond. "Was." She didn't push. Just nodded and said, "Welcome to Austin." That was it. Jenna didn't ask more, didn't probe, didn't smile too wide when I showed up early or worked through lunch. She just let me be. And somehow that helped more than anyone asking how I was doing. I started building new routines. Simple ones. I'd wake up at 6, walk to the corner diner for coffee, listen to the morning traffic like it was a kind of music. After work, I'd sit out on the fire escape with a beer and read nothing heavy, mostly old car mags or used paperback thrillers I picked up for $1 each at a church-run thrift store. On Saturdays, I worked on the old motorcycle I'd hauled out of a junkyard back in Colorado. A '79 Yamaha with a dented tank and no seat. I hadn't touched it in years. Rachel used to roll her eyes whenever I talked about restoring it. "Why would you fix something that's broken?" she once asked. Now I had an answer. Because it deserved to be. Some nights, I found myself thinking about the kind of music I used to love, old Springsteen, Bon Iver, acoustic stuff that made you feel something. I hadn't listened in a long time. Rachel always controlled the playlists, chill wave, synth pop, whatever was on brand. It's weird how you stop noticing when pieces of yourself go missing. Now, I played what I wanted. Even if it was just for me. I didn't go out much. Still don't. Crowds drain me in a way they didn't before. But I don't feel lonely. Not like I used to, sitting across from someone I loved and feeling invisible. Now, if I'm quiet, it's by choice. Some nights, I'd lie on that stiff, second-hand mattress in my apartment and feel something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Not joy. Not closure. Not vengeance. Just the soft, quiet understanding that I had saved myself. Not from her, exactly. From the slow erosion of becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone who tolerated half-love and silence and lies dressed up as sacrifice. I was starting to feel whole again. Not because I'd rebuilt everything, but because I'd stopped bleeding.